of Irtika Institute has been holding an annual distinguished lecture for about 20 years to honor the memory of the eminent sociologist Hamza Alavi. Our guest today is Dr. Jayati Ghosh. Professor Jayati Ghosh is a globally acclaimed economist. She taught for over 30 years at Jawaharlal Nehru University and has just retired from there and joined the University of Massachusetts at Amherst. She is greatly in demand for all sorts of talks, lectures, and in addition to being an activist, to being an academic, she is very much involved in social rights. So that's particularly welcoming for us here at the Irtika Institute. So welcome, Jayati, to this audience here in Pakistan. Just a few words about the format of this webinar. I see it as the first in a series of webinars where we would start from the big picture and move gradually towards issues of more detail. So this will allow us for a continued interaction, and also for that reason, we are going to experiment with a different arrangement for question and answers. We will not take questions in this webinar, but ask you instead to pay attention to the conversation and reflect on what you have heard, compose your questions, and communicate them to Irtika at the contact numbers that you will find on your screen, both the email and WhatsApp. And also, if there are questions that are in the chat box, Irtika will collect them. We will go over them and have another session, maybe about a month from now, in which we will respond to all the questions in a much more comprehensive manner. I think that will allow for an improvement in the level of discourse, and we will be able to satisfy you much more fully. So with that out of the way, let me begin. To be a series of questions for Professor Ghosh, and that will evolve hopefully into a good conversation. So, Professor Ghosh, let me start at the very beginning. Before this COVID outbreak, we sort of lived as part of this economy and took it for granted without thinking too much about it. But this COVID epidemic has sort of cast a huge light on the workings of the economy and exposed some really dark sides of it. In particular, the image of the migrant workers in India is so vivid, is seared across our brains, showing us, that millions of people lived extremely precarious, vulnerable, and fragile lives. And the one thing that I think of repeatedly is that just in order to survive, young people have to be separated from their wives and children for long periods of time, seeing them, just maybe once or twice a year. And to me, the fact that, most of the people in this world are compassionate and caring, I want to ask you, how is it that this kind of an economy is considered acceptable by many? I mean, do you have any thoughts on that?
That's a very interesting question. But I would just add one caveat. Even before the pandemic struck, आप जो कह रहे सही कह रहे हैं कि वो pandemic के बाद जो हुआ है, it has really exposed a lot of the inequalities and so on. But I think even before that, at least the Indian economy was already in very bad shape. we had a period of rapid growth that everybody celebrated that we are the new giants in the global economy after China and so on. But that was a period when employment was falling, when inequalities were increasing, when hunger was increasing, when multidimensional poverty was increasing. So in many ways, even that growth period was not great. And since 2012, we have not even had that. Investment has been falling, employment has fallen even further, and it's become much more precarious. Even those who are in regular employment, it's much more precarious. Real wages were not rising. GDP supposedly growing at 7%, real wages were falling. So those fault lines that you mentioned, I think those fault lines were already apparent in India for sure, but the pandemic has put a kind of X-ray onto all of this. So it's showing very, very sharply. और आप जो कह रहे हैं वो जो migrant workers के बारे में वो बिल्कुल it was an extreme expression of what I might call the daily cruelty of informal workers in India. And I think the very fact that it could happen to this degree with such insensitivity on the part of the government and even of the elites, and with such lack of willingness to even do the minimum necessary to allow people to survive with some dignity. I think that is a reflection of a very great tolerance of inequality, which to me comes from the caste system. At least in India, I know, and I will argue perhaps in the Indian subcontinent, the caste system has played a really massive and terrible role in inuring us to inequalities, and in making it hierarchy just such a common and inevitable feature of our lives, discrimination is something that comes naturally. And that has actually also impeded our economic development.
Right. Jayati, to economists, this aspect of the economy was known to some extent. For example, farmer suicides in India have been going on for quite some time. But they were really sort of invisible. I mean, the COVID has made the invisible visible. And, I was wondering, you have given an explanation in the caste system of why, we are so inured to this kind of deprivation. So that's an explanation we can think of. And also in our own context in Pakistan, we are not so attuned to the caste hierarchy. But I want to move on to the impact of the COVID. When before COVID, we used to think of the economic system as a kind of a global juggernaut that was just going on its own momentum that nobody could do anything with. But with the COVID, it was a huge surprise that this huge, big system could be brought to a stop. And for a while, it seemed that there was no way that we could go back to the old system. But now, 6 months later, I have my doubts that the talk is much more in terms of restoration and, kind of reviving the old economy. So in that context, do you feel that we can really go back to the old system, or do you think that some things will change for sure? And if so, what are they?
Again, this is a very, very big question. I think whether we can go back to that old system, we cannot, right? That old system was actually already dysfunctional. Even before COVID, the global economy was not growing. Everybody kept talking about green shoots and all that. It was talking up rather than recognizing the realities, which is that investment was down pretty much across the world. The advanced economies had been pumping in massive money, liquidity in the form of quantitative easing and so on, just to keep the system afloat. मान लीजिए कि this is a drowning person, तो उसको किसी तरीके से आप कुछ ना कुछ नीचे से करके उसको बस ऊपर float करने दे रहे हैं. तो ये जो this, and they had exhausted all the firepower. They had actually, you can expend another 1 trillion in the economy. It doesn't mean investment goes up. So that was already exhausted. In other words, capitalism had really run, global capitalism had run out of steam. So pandemic ne kya kiya? Pandemic comes and it actually destroys even whatever was remaining. In a sense, it kind of stops. And it is unusual because it is a simultaneous stopping of demand and supply. दोनों बंद हो गए. एक तरह से लोगों के पास पैसा नहीं है, नौकरी नहीं है, कुछ नहीं है, तो कुछ कर नहीं पा रहे, खरीद नहीं पा रहे. दूसरी तरफ से आप कह रहे हैं कि आप जाओ मत बाहर, आप अंदर रहो, बाहर जाने से बीमारी बढ़ेगी, तो सप्लाई भी बंद हो जाती है या कम हो जाती है. तो दोनों तरह से ये जो इम्पैक्ट है, what this showed, and that's very interesting, in the developed world, they quickly said, okay, now state has to come in. And the state came in with major public spending. In US, right, in UK, in Europe, in Japan, बहुत जबरदस्त तरीके से उन्होंने फिस्कल एक्सपेंशन की. जो 3 महीने पहले अगर उनसे पूछते कि आप फिस्कल एक्सपेंशन कीजिए, मना कर देते. नहीं नहीं, हो ही नहीं सकता, करने से ही सब कुछ सत्यानाश हो जाएगा, यू कैन नॉट डू इट. पैंडेमिक आने के बाद एकदम से 10%, 12% ऑफ जीडीपी, 15%, जापान में 25% ऑफ जीडीपी खर्च कर दिया. So, in fact, it shows that when the interests of capital are at stake, they find the money. There's no problem.
Right.
वो कोई economic theory रोकता नहीं है उनको.
Right.
तो ये एक, मुझे लगता है कि ये political सवाल है, ये राजनीतिक सवाल है, that they will do it if the politics changes. Right now, the politics, the power imbalances are still very much in favor of global capital, finance capital, and monopoly, right, and digital capital.
Right. तो जयति, जब कैपिटलिज्म में क्राइसिस आते हैं, पहले आए हैं, तो it always sort of finds a new frontier into which to expand. I mean, globalization was one, it expanded. So आपके ख्याल में आप कोई न्यू फ्रंटियर है कोई? I mean, is it going to be in space or something where capital will reinvent itself and find a new space for itself?
ये देखिए, ये हो सकता है. हम तो पहले से पता नहीं पड़ता है ना कि कौन सा नया चीज वो निकालेंगे. जैसे कि they found intellectual property rights as a source of markets and commercialization, which when we were young, when you and I were young, we could not imagine that knowledge itself would become private property to such an extent and be commercialized to this extent. तो ये हो सकता है. We cannot predict what will happen in terms of the way in which capitalism will or can reinvent itself. But there are also many internal contradictions. There is a German political philosopher, Wolfgang Streeck, and he wrote a book called How Capitalism Dies. His argument is that capitalism is already dead. वो मर चुका है. क्योंकि basically what does capitalism do? It's supposed to be dynamic, it's supposed to encourage growth. Accumulation is the heart and soul of capitalism. अब ये accumulation हो ही नहीं रहा है. क्यों नहीं हो रहा है? Because they have been too successful. The ruling classes have been too successful in destroying all opposition. They have actually, and by doing that, since there is now no check on their unbridled activities, that means that they have destroyed demand. लोगों के पास पैसा नहीं है, relatively speaking, to the amount of productive capacities. They have destroyed the institutions that would allow markets to function in a reasonable way. And they have actually destroyed possibilities of association that would create a balance of social solidarity in society. So capitalism मर चुका है. The problem, he says, is that there's nobody to push the dead body out of the way. तो ये dead body हमारे ऊपर पड़ा हुआ है. और ये centuries तक चल सकता है कि this dead body is covering us all.
Right. Jayati, तो फर्ज कीजिए कि I mean, they find some way to patch up this system that exists. What do you think are going to be its vulnerabilities or its weak links, and can they be leveraged to move towards a more humane economy?
So here is the thing. There are, I think, two ways of looking at it. More pessimistic, more optimistic. Pessimistic scenario तो ये है कि ये जो pandemic है, ये तो शुरुआत है. ये तो appetizers हैं. अब main cause आने वाली है, आ चुकी है actually climate change. शुरू हो गया है. और ये climate change के जरिए जो जो चीजें होंगे हम सोच भी नहीं सकते. They are actually beyond our comprehension, the kind of natural and social and population damage that they can do. Cities can be, going into the sea. The kind of climate refugees we may have, it can be horrific. So ये मुझे लगता है ये केवल capitalism के नहीं, it's an existential threat for humanity. Now, in such a situation of existential threat, you can go in any direction. You can say that, my God, this will create all of these tensions, pressures. You will get like, jungle raj, you will get massive violence, you will get oppression, you will get people fighting over small scraps for survival. ये सब हो सकता है और शायद होएगा भी कहीं कहीं. मगर ये भी some सोच सकते हैं that finally humanity steps back from the brink. पहले भी हो चुका है that we have been, I think, at the threshold of major collapses, and always humanity has actually stepped back from that brink. And so if you can generate a situation where people realize नहीं ये तो चल नहीं सकता है, हमें रोकना ही है, हमें बदलना ही है, then we will get positive change, I think.
तो जयति इस वक्त लोगों के जो मेजर डिमांड्स हैं वो क्या होने चाहिए on the pattern of, let's say, Occupy Wall Street? What should people be striving for?
आजकल दुनिया में अगर आप देखें तो पॉपुलर डिमांड में ये ग्रीन न्यू डील एक बहुत बड़ा एक प्रोग्रेसिव लोगों के साथ दिस आइडिया ऑफ अ ग्रीन न्यू डील, और वो भी ग्लोबल ग्रीन न्यू डील, काफी इसके बारे में चर्चा है. There's a lot of activism around it. People are talking about it, and there is more resonance now even in developing countries. मुझे लगता है it's not just green. मुझे लगता है कि we need a multicolored new deal. Multicolored किस वजह से मैं बताती हूँ. एक तो we have to have green, certainly. But सबसे पहले हम बस ये पता कर लें कि ये न्यू डील क्या होता है, आखिर है क्या ये न्यू डील. तो ये जो टर्म है न्यू डील, ये रूजवेल्ट के टाइम में इन द यूएस इन द 1930s वहां पे हुआ था पोस्ट डिप्रेशन. इट वाज अ रिकवरी based on three things: based on massive public investment, on redistribution and regulation. ये तीन इनके pillars थे. तो recovery based on big increases in public expenditure. 3 साल में उन्होंने पूरा public budget को double कर दिया. अब सोच लीजिए 10% नहीं 15%, डबल कर दिया 3 साल में. इतना ज्यादा जबरदस्त पब्लिक स्पेंडिंग उन्होंने बढ़ाया. एंड एवरीथिंग दैट वी थिंक ऑफ इन डेवलप्ड सोसाइटीज टुडे, public schooling, community colleges, orchestras, land grants, soldiers education, everything, all the things that we now see as aspects of welfare state and basic to advanced economy societies, वो सब उस वक्त हुआ था. So big public spending. उसके साथ साथ रेगुलेशन, कैपिटल को रेगुलेट करो, लेबर मार्केट्स को रेगुलेट करो, एग्रीकल्चर को रेगुलेट करो, एनवायरनमेंट को रेगुलेट करो, उसके साथ रीडिस्ट्रीब्यूशन. इतना खर्च करोगे तो पैसा कहीं से तो आएगा. यू हैव टू टैक्स द वेल्थी, यू हैव टू टैक्स कॉर्पोरेट्स, और टैक्स रेट्स भी काफी बढ़ गया था उस वक्त, और वायबल, क्योंकि उस टैक्सेस से खर्च ऐसा होता था कि कंपनीज आल्सो रिमेन्ड वेरी प्रॉफिटेबल. तो ये बात नहीं है कि टैक्स करने से ही सब मरेंगे गिरेंगे, नहीं. इट एक्चुअली जनरेट्स मोर वायबल सोसाइटीज. तो ये ग्रीन. और अब हम कह रहे हैं कि फिलहाल की जो हालात है, we have to actually spend a lot of money for greening, for coping with climate change, adapting to it, mitigating it, dealing with climate refugees, thinking of new ways of producing and consuming and distributing. तो ये green element वहां पे हुआ. दूसरा रंग blue. Blue क्यों? क्योंकि पानी का रंग. मान लीजिए that we have really ignored the constraints on water. हमें तो मालूम है साउथ एशिया में वाटर का क्या है, but I really think a lot of the wars of this century will be about water. Or we have to address this thing about universal access to clean potable water. And there's a lot of inequality involved in access, and it is also gender inequality. ये औरतों के ऊपर पड़ता है, that they have to collect and store and all of those things for the water. Then it has to be purple. Purple क्यों? क्योंकि purple कहते हैं is the color of the care economy. अब ये pandemic ने साफ साफ दिखा दिया that we have neglected healthcare to the extent that it is not just a threat to people and to societies, but it's a threat to the economy. ये पूरा एक बीमारी पूरा दुनिया को रोक सकती है, पूरा एक ग्लोबल इकोनॉमी को रोक सकती है. So we really have to invest in healthcare, and it is also employment generating. ये एक ऐसी चीज है जो टेक्नोलॉजी मदद कर सकती है, which will not replace human jobs. So health, so purple for the care economy, और आखिर में red for redistribution. हमजा आलवी के बारे में आप कह रहे थे, रेड टू इंश्योर दैट देयर इज एक्चुअली ग्रेटर इक्वालिटी. नहीं तो क्या है, societies become dysfunctional, become violent, become prone to all kinds of divisive measures and pressures and so on.
Right. जयंती, ये आप जो कह रही हैं, दिस इज आयरॉनिकल कि वही लोग जिनको इतनी बुरी तरह से ट्रीट किया जा रहा है, जो जैसे हमने माइग्रेंट वर्कर्स का वो देखा, उन्हीं लोगों को हम एसेंशियल वर्कर्स भी कह रहे हैं, और उनके लिए हम वो बैंगिंग पॉट्स. तो बिग कॉन्ट्रडिक्शन कि इतने एसेंशियल हैं तो उनको हम इतने बुरी तरह से क्यों ट्रीट करते हैं.
बिल्कुल. हाँ, बताइए.
जी नहीं, आप कहिए. आप कुछ
नहीं, मैं ये कह रही हूँ कि ये जो आप ये हिपोक्रेसी जो आप बता रहे थे, ये हिपोक्रेसी इतना जबरदस्त है कि एक तरफ से शाम को आप ये ताली बजाएंगे, थाली बजाएंगे, दिया जलाएंगे, ये सब उनके नाम पे, दूसरे दिन आप उनको तनख्वाह नहीं देंगे. Most health workers in the country have not been paid for months even. पब्लिक सेक्टर में, इवन प्राइवेट सेक्टर, जो घर पे आके काम करने वाले थे, उनको जितने दिन लॉकडाउन थे पैसा ही नहीं दिया गया. So it is that degree of hypocrisy.
Right. हाँ, जैसे अभी तक जो हमारी बात हुई है उसमें ये बात साफ हो गई है कि इकोनॉमी जो है वो कोई एक इंडिपेंडेंट एंटिटी नहीं है which exists outside of society. You know, it's clear that it can be reorganized, it can be redesigned. So in this context, ये बहुत लोग कहते हैं कि the economy is embedded in society. तो कुछ हमारे व्यूअर्स के लिए आप इस पे एलैबोरेट कर सकती हैं कि व्हाट इज इट ट्राइंग टू कन्वे.
ये जो फ्रेज है अबाउट सोशल एम्बेडेडनेस, ये एक बहुत वेरी फेमस थिंकर कार्ल पोलानी, उन्होंने कहा था कि that you know, if economies should be embedded in the social relations, and if you divorce them too much, then you get this completely dysfunctional thing, जहाँ पे समाज खुद ही, you are actually destroying societies as well. तो उसको हमें बदलने के लिए क्या करना पड़ता है. अब फिलहाल देखिए कि जितना माइग्रेंट वर्कर्स के ऊपर जितना जबरदस्त ऑपरेशन हुआ, जितने सारे इनफॉर्मल वर्कर्स को भूखे मर रहे थे, जो माइग्रेंट्स भी नहीं थे, जो अपने घरों में अभी तक भूखे मर रहे हैं, नौकरी नहीं है, etc. Stock market is booming and zooming.
Right.
Some of the richest people in the country have doubled their wealth. पिछले 6 महीने में या तो मुकेश अंबानी देखिए, या तो they have all doubled their wealth. 6 महीने में, जो wealth already was, you know, in the top richest of the world and so on. So that kind of massive separation of financial wealth, assets, and the top capital from the rest of the economy, 99.9% ही मान लीजिए बुरी हालत में है. That is something which even Polanyi said कि आप इसको अगर ठीक नहीं करते हैं तो ये चलेगा नहीं, ये टूटेगा, मगर ये बहुत गंदी तरह से भी टूट सकता है, जैसे यूरोप में 1930s में हुआ था, और अभी भी हमारे देश में हम देख रहे हैं कि बहुत गंदी तरह से ये टूट रहा है. You create social violence, you create all kinds of other localized oppression. लोगों में गुस्सा है, वो गुस्सा तो सरकार के ऊपर नहीं कर सकते हो, तो you turn around and you bash your neighbor, or you bash your wife, or you bash anybody who is weaker than you.
Right. राइट। तो जयंती, इससे ये तो वाजे हो जाता है कि अगर इकोनॉमी सोसाइटी में एम्बेडेड है तो सियासत का या पॉलिटिक्स का बहुत अहम रोल है।
हाँ.
और जिस तरह की पॉलिटिक्स होगी उसी तरह की इकोनॉमी भी उसके असर में बनेगी। तो इस पॉलिटिक्स की एक एस्पेक्ट जो है बहुत अहम, वो इट्स द बैलेंस ऑफ पावर बिटवीन कैपिटल एंड लेबर, राइट। तो आखिरी बार जब ये बैलेंस बहुत रेडिकली शिफ्ट हुआ था, वो जो आपने पहले मेंशन कर दिया, ग्रेट डिप्रेशन था, जिसके बाद वो न्यू डील आई, और फिर दूसरी जंग अजीम, सेकेंड वर्ल्ड वॉर के बाद सोशलाइजेशन ऑफ सर्विसेज, जिसमें जैसे नेशनल हेल्थ सर्विस यूके में थी, which was followed by what people call the 30 glorious years of shared equitable growth. तो आपके ख्याल में कोई ऐसा प्रोस्पेक्ट है कि कुछ इस तरह की रीबैलेंसिंग कैपिटल और लेबर के दरमियान अब होगी, या some kind of a new deal will emerge?
मुझे लगता है कि ये होना ही है। अब कब होगा ये कहना मुश्किल है कि 5 साल में या 10 साल में, मगर इतना बड़ा संकट, दिस काइंड ऑफ क्राइसिस वी हैव नॉट सीन। ग्लोबल डिप्रेशन भी इतना बड़ा नहीं था। मैं अभी आई एम रेडी टू से इट नाउ कि ग्रेट डिप्रेशन के बाद नहीं, ग्रेट डिप्रेशन से भी ज्यादा ये फिलहाल का जो क्राइसिस है, दिस इज बिगर। तो इससे निकलने के लिए बिजनेस एज यूजुअल चल ही नहीं सकता। कोशिश तो करेंगे जरूर, अभी कोशिश कर ही रहे बिजनेस एज यूजुअल करने, और 2-3 साल तक, 5 साल तक, 10 साल तक ऐसे करते जाएंगे, मगर ये चलेगा नहीं, चल नहीं सकता। तो इसीलिए देयर विल बी अल्टरनेटिव्स इमर्जिंग, एंड आई पर्सनली फील दैट वो जो मैं पहले ही कहा था, ह्यूमैनिटी स्टेप्स बैक फ्रॉम द ब्रिंक। तो मुझे लग रहा है कि दैट ये जो आवाजें हैं, all kinds of places you are getting now similar kinds of things coming out, similar kinds of statements coming from people in Ecuador, from people in the Middle East, people in East Asia, that this strategy which destroyed nature, which has exploited people, which has given everybody more fragile, vulnerable lives, this whole economic structure is not viable and it has to change. और इसको कैसे बदलना है वो हर जगह थोड़ा थोड़ा अलग अलग होगा जरूर, मगर एक ग्राउंड सेल थोड़ा सा है मुझे लग रहा है। और विशेष करके इफ यू लुक एट यंग पीपल, आप अंजुम साहब, आपको तो मालूम है that our profession is not a very desirable profession. Our economics has been responsible for a lot of the crimes committed. Mainstream economics has been responsible for a lot of the crimes committed in the world in the last half century. Right. But the young economists, many of them are really raising voices, asking right questions, demanding that economics be much more relevant, accountable, and serious about progressive change. मुझे लगता है कि आशा तो है।
जाती इसका पॉलिटिक्स का जो दूसरा एक पहलू है, the other aspect is the balance between the state and the market. So 1970 से there has been a very sharp swing of the pendulum towards the market, to the point where the government was considered to be a problem. तो आपके ख्याल में कुछ इसमें कुछ rebalance की उम्मीद है of a correction in this, and do you think that the state has some kind of a role, especially in low income countries?
तो इसमें सबसे पहले तो मैं कहूंगी कि ये जो हमें इतना सालों तक बताया गया ना कि आप लोग प्रो स्टेट हो, हम लोग प्रो मार्केट हैं, ये गलत है। हाँ, neoliberalism is not about the market. Neoliberalism is about the state protecting large capital. And so it is markets for us and subsidies for them. It is markets for us, protection for them. कहीं भी हमारे देश में तो है ही है, आप यूएस में भी देखिए, when does the state move in? Global financial crisis, big banks are at stake, जाओ उनको बचाओ। Right now pandemic, जितना खर्च करना है करो। When it was a question of people losing jobs and livelihood, that's not a problem. But now Companies are threatened, जाओ उनको बचाओ.
Right.
In our own country, we see that the state is always moving in to protect large capital. कहीं environmental rule बदलना है, कहीं tribals का land rights घटाना है, कहीं कुछ भी करना है. The state is available for them. तो ये बात सच नहीं है कि वो लोग market को ज्यादा importance देते हैं. ये बात सच नहीं है. Neoliberalism is about the state protecting the interests of large capital. It is not about the state promoting markets. That is an eyewash that all of us are told, because we are then left to completely unregulated markets without any protection. Protection पूरा रखा है उन लोगों के लिए, बड़ी पूंजी के लिए. तो इसमें तो therefore we do not need to say are we pro-state or anti-state, because both sides are clearly pro-state. Both sides are pro-state. बस एक बताता नहीं है, they couch it very well, they cover it up, but both sides are pro-state. तो हमें ये पूछना चाहिए, what kind of state? What kind of state intervention for whom? In what way? How accountable? How transparent? Democratic or not? Responsive to the needs of ordinary people? Providing basic needs for people? ये करते हैं कि नहीं? That is what we should be asking. What is that form of state intervention? Not whether it should be state or market.
Right. 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 Jayji, that it's a very thought-provoking answer, and I'm sure people will reflect on that. इस कनेक्शन में जब भी लोग इसकी बात करते हैं कि आम लोगों की जिंदगी का म्यार, लिविंग कंडीशंस बेहतर करनी चाहिए, तो हमेशा हमें गवर्नमेंट से ये जवाब मिलता है कि पैसे नहीं है. और अब जैसे आपने कहा कि जब होटल और एयरलाइंस को बचाने की जरूरत थी तो ट्रिलियंस ऑफ डॉलर्स कहीं से निकल आए. तो आप जरा हमारे व्यूअर्स को ये समझाइए कि ये पैसे कहां से आ गए और इसकी क्या इम्प्लीकेशन होगी.
अच्छा, तो ये एक बहुत जरूरी प्रश्न है. आई एम सो हैप्पी यू आस्क्ड इट, क्योंकि बहुत लोग सोचते हैं ये कि अरे सरकार के पास पैसा नहीं है, कहां से देंगे, हमारे राशन के लिए पैसा नहीं है, हमें नौकरी के बचाने के लिए पैसा नहीं है वगैरह. लोग सोचते हैं that there is this tight budget constraint. अब बात सीधी सी बात ये है कि गवर्नमेंट के do not have the budget constraint जो हाउस होल्ड में है. हमारे घर में अगर मेरा वेतन नहीं आया तो मैं खर्च नहीं पाऊंगी, या तो मुझे कहीं लोन लेना पड़ेगा, है ना. सरकार के पास, केंद्रीय सरकार, क्योंकि हमारे देश में तो लेवल्स है ना, और हमारे राज्य सरकार, बल्कि इंडिया में तो वही है कि राज्य सरकारों के हक नहीं है अलग से बोरो करने के लिए. उनको मार्केट में जाके केंद्र सरकार का परमिशन लेके वही करना पड़ता है. मगर केंद्र सरकार हमारे देश में, पाकिस्तान में, सब जगह एक बहुत whatever a major difference is that the central government can borrow from the central bank, and that is a very big thing, because you can borrow at very, very low interest rate, and it is basically what is called deficit financing. You print money, central bank paisa, it can create money. Abhi US में क्या हो रहा है? They are creating money like no tomorrow. They are borrowing just from the central bank. ये पैसा कहाँ से आ रहा है? The US federal government is saying, I'm going to spend this much. तो US Fed makes available that much. जापान में कह रहा है कि हमें इतना खर्च करना है, Bank of Japan makes it available. That's all. Because it is only paper money or electronic money. It's not something which you have to take out or ये पूरा खत्म हो गया. It's just a creation. It's a creation of human minds. So they can spend it. अब इसको क्यों लोग बोलते हैं कि ये खतरनाक है? इसलिए कि ज्यादा करोगे आप इसको, अगर if you do too much of this, it can be inflationary or it can give you balance of payments constraint. ये दोनों प्रॉब्लम है. अब इन्फ्लेशन तो हो ही नहीं रहा है. पिछले 12-15 साल से they have put 20 साल से almost they have put so much liquidity into the economy. इतना उन्होंने पैसा डाल दिया, फिर भी इन्फ्लेशन नहीं हुआ एडवांस्ड इकोनॉमीज में. हमारे देश में इन्फ्लेशन क्यों होता है? दैट इज सप्लाई शॉर्टेजेस. या तो हमें एग्रीकल्चर फूड स्टफ्स की सब शॉर्टेज है, या तो हमें एसेंशियल इनपुट्स का शॉर्टेज है या हमें इंपोर्ट कंस्ट्रेंट है. These are supply shortages. These are not कि पैसा ज्यादा आ गया इसीलिए इन्फ्लेशन हो रहा है. So if we simply get our central governments to borrow from the central banks and spend, and some of that spending can be directed to supply shortages, then it will not be inflationary. तो सबसे पहली बात ये है. So that is in the short run. Short run में there is no constraint on government spending. और जो लोग कह रहे हैं कि हम कर नहीं पा रहे क्योंकि हमारा इतना टैक्स रेवेन्यू हाई है, वो झूठ बोल रहे हैं. Because in no year is your budget constrained by your current tax revenues. ये पूरा झूठ है. अब ये बात सच है कि over time 3-4 साल में you will have to somehow pay for this because नहीं तो imbalance. तो over time yes you have to think of new sources of taxation. और इसमें मैं दोबारा से कहूंगी कि जो बहुत बहुत अमीर लोग हैं और जो बड़े बड़े कॉर्पोरेशन हैं जो कुछ टैक्स दे ही नहीं रहे हैं, using all the different available tax breaks to pay almost no tax, उनको हमें टैक्स करना चाहिए at the same rate as the rest of us. मैं ये नहीं कहूंगी कि ज्यादा टैक्स करो उनको. Same rate, let them actually not be able to take advantage of all the tax breaks. That alone will double our tax revenues.
Right.
एक estimate हुआ हमारे इंडिया में कि if you tax only the richest 965 families, मतलब 1000 से भी कम, 1.3 बिलियन है हमारा पॉपुलेशन, उनमें से आप 1000 फैमिलीज से कम उनको इनके वेल्थ पे टैक्स लगाओ 4%. Now this set of families, their wealth in the last 6 months has grown by about 15%. हम कह रहे हैं उनका बस 4% टैक्स करो, उनको पता भी नहीं पड़ेगा 15% बढ़ गया, 4% कम हो गया, 11% हो गया, still their wealth has increased. Tax only 4%. Your tax revenue will be 1% of GDP, जो कि हमारा पूरा सरकारी health spending है फिलहाल. We could double the health spending of the country by taxing only 965 families, 4% of the wealth, which they would not even notice has gone.
आप बिल्कुल ठीक कह रही हैं. बहुत से लोग ये कहते हैं कि ये टैक्स करेंगे तो इस पे इंसेंटिव्स पे और इकोनॉमी पे बहुत असर पड़ेगा, लेकिन जिन लोगों ने इसको पढ़ा हुआ है उन्हें मालूम है कि न्यू डील के साथ जो अपर इनकम पे टैक्स ब्रैकेट्स थे वो ऑलमोस्ट लाइक 85% और 80%. तो इस लेवल की टैक्सेशन भी हो सकती है और उससे इकोनॉमी कभी बिल्कुल तबाह नहीं हुई, खत्म नहीं हुई, it survived. So there is a case for raising taxes at the upper end. और आप ठीक कह रही हैं कि उससे इतना रेवेन्यू सस्टेनेबल बेसिस पे, ये जो लिक्विडिटी इंजेक्शन है रिजर्व बैंक की, ये तो एक वन टाइम वो है, मगर ये सस्टेनेबल बेसिस पे इससे रेवेन्यू बहुत जनरेट हो सकता है.
और मैं ये भी नहीं कह रही हूँ कि 80% करो, मैं कह रही 4% करो.
हाँ, नहीं, मैं सिर्फ इसलिए कह रहा हूँ कि 80% के साथ भी इकोनॉमी सरवाइव कर सकती है, ग्रो कर सकती है, बढ़ा. बिल्कुल. तो जिस तरह हमारी इकोनॉमिक्स में मिनिमम वेजेस और मिनिमम उसका जिक्र होता है, कुछ ऊपर कैप की भी जरूरत है. एट द हायर एंड the income should be capped in some way.
Exactly.
तो ये जो अगर ये हो जाए इस तरह से, आप जैसे कह रही हैं 4% टैक्स भी लग जाए और जीडीपी डबल हो जाएगा, तो इससे जो रेवेन्यू जनरेट होगा, आपके ख्याल में उसकी प्रायोरिटी यूसेज जो है वो कहाँ, किस तरह से इस्तेमाल करना चाहिए?
तो सबसे पहले इमीडिएटली वी हैव टू एक्सपैंड हेल्थ स्पेंडिंग. सब जगह हमारे देश में तो है ही है, पूरा साउथ एशिया में तो है, but we have to double our health spending at the very minimum. We have to recognize the contribution of health workers, pay them properly. अभी इंडिया में जो frontline health workers हैं, they are not even recognized as public employees. आशाज, आंगनवाड़ी workers वगैरह, इनको तो voluntary workers कहा जाता है. They do not even get minimum wages. So we have to recognize them, we have to pay them properly, we have to double their number, triple their number, बहुत कम है फिलहाल. We have to expand health services at every level, primary, secondary, tertiary. We have to expand education services to give proper universal access to good public education. So ये दोनों एकदम जरूरी है, number one. Number two, the public investments to cope with climate change. हम सोच भी नहीं रहे हैं कि एग्रीकल्चर को कैसे प्रोटेक्ट किया जाए from these vagaries. What is going to happen to infrastructure in all our coastal cities which are sinking? What is going to happen to cities down the line of major climate disasters like earthquakes and cyclones? What is going to happen to how we structure production and consumption so you can create more sustainable local communities that are not completely wiped out if one supply chain somewhere in China is broken? We really have to have a lot of public spending to cope with climate change, because हम ये नहीं कह सकते कि ये आने वाला है, ये आ चुका है, ये बढ़ता जाएगा. And the less we do now, the more we delay, the more we will have to spend later.
Jayati, let me come to the million dollar question. How can citizens, especially in countries like ours, ensure that the state is responsive to their interests and not to their own interests and act like robber barons? Because everything is premised on this accountability.
You're absolutely right. And this is a million, billion, trillion dollar question. Because I think one other thing has happened in the last decade, especially, which is something that has made it much harder. And that is the huge growth of this new media and the control of the state and of large capital over traditional media. So एक तरफ से आपका newspapers, television वगैरह is completely controlled by large capital. दूसरी तरफ से the new media increasingly is being used, manipulated, and sought to be controlled by the agents of large capital and the right. Let us be honest. So confronting this is really very difficult, because हमारे पास उतना पैसा नहीं है to organize troll armies. जो हमारे देश में ruling party has got troll armies. They have WhatsApp battalions, and they call them that, who are on it and every day to make sure that only one kind of position, one kind of voice, and all kinds of fake news gets heard, distributed, and so on. Regulation तो जरूरी है, मगर regulation काफी नहीं है, because you can always keep subventing and subverting that. We really have to be much more imaginative, creative about how to get around this big problem. The misinformation, the disinformation, and the lack of knowledge of, first of all, the economy, but also all kinds of other things about, other social groups, about other religious groups, about other castes, which is being spread in India on a regular basis to make people sort of more cemented in their prejudices, more eager to divert their anger away from the real causes of their distress to other people. All of that we have to fight. So ये जो media पे जो बहुत जबरदस्त control हो गया है, इसको बदलना is a very, very major part. So I think the emergence of independent media, the protection of independent media, that is a responsibility for all of us. We have to fund it at whatever level we can. जो भी हम दे सकते हैं, 5 रुपया, 10 रुपया, जो भी हम दे सकते हैं, we have to fund independent media. We have to fight to actually create a backlash against the spreading of fake news. We have to be willing to engage. It's very tedious, it's very strenuous and difficult to be on that, but we have to engage, because that's where a lot of that misinformation is being spread. And I think हम जो economists लोग हैं, political economists हैं, हमारा एक और भी responsibility है, that is to make it clear to people कितना बकवास बोला जा रहा है. Fiscal constraint है, हम कर नहीं सकते. When it comes to protecting the state, there is money. हमारे देश में ही आप, मैंने पहले भी बोल चुका है, but let me just give you an example from last year in India. 2019 में economy गिर रही थी. मैंने कहा ना कि already there was recession, investment was falling, employment was falling. तो सरकार ने क्या किया? Tax break दे दिया बड़ा कंपनी को. Tax कम करके we gave away more than 1.8 lakh crore in taxes to big companies. क्यों? क्योंकि फिर वो invest करेंगे. उन्होंने किया ही नहीं. They didn't. Why should they? Because there is no market, there is nothing. So they got the tax benefit and then they kept it. उनके profits बढ़ गई. When it came to feeding the hungry, increasing the employment guarantee, increasing payments for health workers, no money. वो उसके लिए पैसा नहीं है. 15,000 crore देना का उन्होंने 15,000 crore, that's all for health spending during the pandemic. They gave away 1.7 lakh crore, 1.8 lakh crore they gave away. For health spending in the pandemic, they set aside 15 lakh crore, not even 10%. और उसका भी पूरा खर्च नहीं किया है. 6 महीने बाद अब दिख रहा है कि वो 15 लाख करोड़ बोला उन्होंने, बस 8 लाख ही खर्च किया है. So they have spent less than 5% on health spending during a pandemic, and they gave away 1.8 lakh crore as corporate tax relief without any benefit. तो ये जो राजनीति है, ये लोगों को पता होना चाहिए. किसी को पता भी नहीं है. हमारे देश में ही अखबारों बताते नहीं है, टीवी प्रोग्राम्स बताते नहीं है. ये ऐसे जो these things have got to be spread and disseminated so people know what is going on.
So Jayati, this seems to be a very difficult proposition. इसमें हमें बहुत सोचना पड़ेगा, मगर alternative media में जो कुछ पहले मिसालें हैं, like for example public broadcasting system, PBS और NPR, या एक जमाने में BBC जो था, do you think that those are models that we can emulate, or their time has come and gone?
You know, the trouble with a public broadcaster is that it depends on who controls the state. हमारे पास भी एक दूरदर्शन है, public broadcaster है, but the state controls it so that it is even worse than some of the crazy right-wing channels, or as bad as. So I think a lot of it depends on whether you can make this government ensure that it is an independent public broadcaster, not just a public broadcaster. A lot of it, so power and control, these are still very, very critical. ये model तो सही है, मगर model depends on the fact that the state will not use its power to force that public broadcaster to behave in certain ways.
Jayati, let me now come to ourselves, economists. आपने पहले भी इसका जिक्र किया, and into the world of ideas that really shapes what we think of ourselves, how we place ourselves in the economy. तो ये मुझे बताइए कि I'm always puzzled about this, कि जो mainstream economic narrative है, उसमें इतने बड़े phenomena जो हैं, let's just take two, power and justice, they just don't figure in it. They are excluded from it. So tell me why, and how can this kind of an incomplete narrative have legitimacy in intellectual circles? ये कैसे हुआ ये?
Yeah, this is a very good question, and I'm so happy that this question, you are raising it, but also a lot of young people are raising it now, and I think that's very important and very necessary. साफ कहना चाहिए that economics began as moral philosophy. The earlier political economists, they saw themselves as moral philosophy, but actually now it has become an instrument in the service of power. ये सच बात है. Mainstream economics is very much in the service of power, and the incentives within the discipline are oriented towards promoting a certain kind of very technocratic discussion, which ordinary people cannot understand. So you will try and complicate it, make it esoteric, and then say, this is the only thing. You can only do this. This is the only economic policy available, hiding a lot of the truths. The Laffer curve, or all kinds of things. And when those are theoretically or empirically questioned, that is also suppressed even in the mainstream economics literature. So the main top journals will publish only things that conform to a certain worldview. If you don't publish in those journals, you don't get into the top universities. If you don't, or you go to promotion, or you don't get tenure. So the incentives for young people are to do only that kind of research. And you promote, therefore, a certain vision of the economy and of economic policy, which serves the interests of power, and power in the form of the state supporting large capital. But now it's become evident that that is completely hollow. अभी मैं फिलहाल यूनाइटेड स्टेट्स में हूँ. Most mainstream economics departments in the United States, they're all part of this game. And but look at the business schools. The business schools are hiring heterodox economists. They are hiring lawyers who are looking at different. They are hiring philosophers because they're saying we have to understand this economy. Business chalane ke liye we have to understand the economy. These guys don't understand the economy. They're not able to tell us what is happening, why it's happening, what are the forces that will change it. They cannot tell us. So business schools, which are forced to deal with the real world, are now hiring heterodox economists because they say, "Chalo, kam se kam hame pata to pade kya ho raha hai." You know, we have to deal with the real world. That's one thing. Yesterday I had to write the foreword for a report written by a bunch of young economists. एक नौजवान group है, rethinking economics करके. तो उनका कहना ये है कि हमें जो सिखाया जा रहा है ये पूरा बेकार है. We are not able to answer or even ask the central economic questions of our times. तो उन्होंने एक सर्वे किया है. They interviewed, I think, about 1,000 young students from all over the world. पाकिस्तान से भी थे, भारत से भी थे, a lot all over the world. And they asked these questions कि क्या-क्या बड़े-बड़े प्रश्न हैं? Are you getting some help understanding these from your courses? जबरदस्त जवाब आया. We cannot understand climate change on the basis of the things we're taught. जो Nobel Prize मिला है for environment, वो तो कह रहे कि 4 degrees increase काफी है, बहुत no problem, it's all fine, market सही है for controlling climate change. So that obviously does not work. In the pandemic, states are doing all kinds of things like these massive furlough payments. तो हमारे पूरा labor economics हमें सिखाया गया है, कहीं furlough payment का नाम नहीं है. तो ये एक तरफ से हो रहा है policy, और उधर से आप कह रहे हैं कि लेबर मार्केट मस्ट बी अलाउड टू फंक्शन विदाउट एनी इंटरवेंशन, ये वो. तो हमें कहा गया है कि मार्केट मैकेनिज्म इज द बेस्ट मैकेनिज्म फॉर प्राइसिंग. उधर जब वैक्सीन की बात कर रहे हैं तो प्राइसिंग विल बी क्रेजी एंड वी विल ऑल बी एक्सक्लूडेड. और हमारे जो लीडर्स हैं, एक तरफ से डोनाल्ड ट्रंप और दूसरी तरफ से मोदी, कह रहे हैं कि जहां चुनाव होने वाला है हम आपको फ्री वैक्सीन दिलवाएंगे आपके लिए. So ये price mechanism क्या हो गया? Is that what is going on? So these are young people asking this question, that why are we not being taught the central questions and the ways in which we can answer those central questions? तो मुझे लगता है कि ये जो gatekeepers of the discipline हैं, उनका भी समय आ गया है. क्योंकि बहुत जोर आवाज आ रही है from across the world, from young economists who are saying we have to actually make economics relevant to the real world again.
Right. आपने जो ये कहा कि इसका समय आ गया, this is very encouraging. Although
because
people like
it is
me
being propped up by power.
Right.
अंजुम साहब, आप और मैं जिंदा रहेंगे कि नहीं इसको देखने के लिए मुझे नहीं मालूम, मगर ये बच्चे तो जिंदा रहेंगे. हाँ,
मैं यही कहने वाला था कि हमारी तो जिंदगी इसमें गुजर गई. आपने बिजनेस स्कूल का जिक्र किया तो वो मुझे याद आया, एक बार किसी ने ये बहुत आई थॉट इट वाज अ एस्ट्यूट ऑब्जर्वेशन कि बिजनेस स्कूल की लाइब्रेरी में अगर आप जाएं तो आधी किताबें जो हैं वो लीडरशिप पे होती हैं, और इकोनॉमिक्स की लाइब्रेरी में आप चले जाएं तो लीडरशिप का कहीं जिक्र ही नहीं होता. तो इस पे कुछ कहिए. आपने ट्रम्प और मोदी और इस तरह के लीडर्स की बात की, तो is this also one of the missing things in the economic narrative?
Yes, and I think political economy was so much richer because it saw that interplay between leaders, society, social and economic change, and how they all interact with one another. ये मुझे मानना पड़ेगा कि मैं काफी गलत थी. I had a broadly materialist conception of the world, and I would think that people's material conditions affect their way of thinking. अब लग रहा है कि it is also possible to manipulate people's views of the world and their perceptions and to divert them for a while at least. But I'm still enough of a materialist to believe that this cannot happen indefinitely. It can happen. But let us remember that, even the fascists of the 20th century created employment. Hitler, Mussolini, etc., they actually created employment. They actually made living
Right.
conditions better for the bulk of the people in their own country. If you cannot do that, at some point there will be a reckoning. So ये जो फिलहाल की जो leadership है, it is an ability to manipulate and control without taking responsibility and without actually doing something for your people. You can clearly, because capital is behind you, because media is behind you, you can sustain this for a while. Can you sustain it indefinitely? मुझे नहीं लगता है, no.
आपने ये ठीक कहा, आपने जो अपनी बात की कि you had this material perception. I think हमारी generation जो एक तरह से train हुई put too much of a premium on reason, and we are now discovering that there are other aspects to how people think than just reason or material interest. So आपने भारत का भी जिक्र किया. ऐसा लगता है जैसे मोदी जी ने इकोनॉमिक्स और पॉलिटिक्स को बिल्कुल अलग अलग कर दिया है. मतलब वो डिमोनेटाइजेशन भी करें, वो माइग्रेंट वर्कर्स को भी 4 घंटे में भेज दें, मगर पॉलिटिकल स्फीयर में इस मटेरियल एंग्विश का कोई बहुत अभी तक तो कम से कम नजर नहीं आ रहा है नतीजा.
नहीं, मगर ये भी हमें याद रखना है कि एक तरफ से जो हमें मीडिया का जो आवाज आ रही है, it is very much influenced by what they want to promote, the reality that they want to promote, because you know there is a lot of, and people are also, let us be honest, scared, so they don't like to talk about many things. साफ साफ बोलने का भी डर है फिलहाल. मगर दूसरा जो which is making the task much more difficult is the collapse of other institutions, जो countervailing institutions हैं, चाहे वो bureaucracy हो, चाहे वो judiciary हो, चाहे वो legislature हो. The countervailing institutions, the media, they have all collapsed, and that is making it much more difficult. There is really no recourse in that sense, and that also, that does two things. It undermines the legitimacy of those institutions, and it means that what the rulers want is constantly reinforced by all of that. So it's like this overwhelming power coming from all directions, which is preying down on people, and therefore the resistance is necessarily more scattered and takes much longer to mobilize. But as I said, you know, it's not a system that can sustain itself beyond a point. अब ये जो फिलहाल जो economy है, it's okay, some capitalists are benefiting, but the majority of even capitalists are doing badly. You know, because in a dying economy, you cannot make profits beyond a point. So yes, some are benefiting because they're taking a larger share of a shrinking pie. But overall, when even capitalists are not benefiting, that system cannot survive for too long.
आप जो ये resistance की बात कर रही हैं, so I sort of, my thoughts go back to the migrant workers, and a lot of people were surprised that so many millions of people just sort of, it seemed like they very quietly went back to where they could find refuge. There wasn't, any kind of a resistance or a protest that at least one came across in the major media. Were there some things that we have missed in this phenomenon?
No, I think there were sporadic, spontaneous protests, especially when migrants had gathered, around railway stations, bus stations, and so on. But you're right, that overall, it was much less than anyone could have expected, just like demonetization. Demonetization के बाद भी हमने सोचा था कि इतना, such a terrible atrocity committed on people for no reason, and people are just taking it. They're losing lives, losing jobs, standing in queues endlessly, not being able to treat people in hospital, and they're accepting it calmly. This was a surprise. Similarly, the acceptance of this, completely unplanned and unnecessary action of a national lockdown with 4 hours notice and no protection, no compensation given to people, that's a crime against the people. वो भी लोग मान गए, और उनको समझाया गया कि
हाँ।
और कोई रिकोर्स नहीं था, ये करना ही था, ये मोदी जी ने आपको बचा दिया, नहीं तो और भी लोग मरते, और भी कुछ होता, etc. The story of how that has actually increased the disease rather than reduced it, that is not coming out in any of the major media. So everyone thinks it's their own individual tragedy. मेरा बहुत खराब हो गया, मगर क्या करें, I was unlucky. बाकी लोग में बच गया, क्योंकि देश में और भी ज्यादा हो जाता, वो कम कर दिया उन्होंने, तो ये करना ही था. मेरी बीवी मर गई, मेरे बच्चे भूखे रह गए, मगर that's really my bad luck rather than the broader systemic policy. ये फिलहाल काफी लोग सोच रहे हैं. बल्कि बिहार में जब भी चुनाव होने वाला है, काफी migrants जो वापस आ गए and are living in terrible conditions, some of them are going back, they will still vote for Modi ji because they think that उनको करना ही था, बेचारे क्या करेगा इतना बड़ा. The story that is being spread is that, oh, the whole world has been this terrible thing, we are doing better than other countries, which is not true, it's the opposite, but that's the story that is being propagated. So yes, और ये भी आप याद रखिए that it's not just the ruling party. India has a long and continuous history of major oppression of lower castes, of lower classes. So, their expectations are also low. It's like life is always terrible for you and people are not on your side, So it's a kind of acceptance. But this acceptance, there are turning points. Farmers का भी, आप अभी farmers suicide के बारे में कह रहे थे. You're absolutely right. But what happened in 2018 and 2019, an upsurge of farmers' protests. We've never seen anything like this since the 1970s. Upsurge of farmers' protests across the country, long marches, 1.5 million marching in Maharashtra, more than 1 million converging onto Delhi from all over the country, different marches in different parts of the country. Farmers blockades, अभी भी farmers protests चल रहे हैं in हरियाणा, राजस्थान, यूपी, जहाँ पे farmers bill लगाया गया है. So, sometimes there are these changes, and I think this is also going to be true in India. The only trouble, as I said, is that institutions have also collapsed. And so, whether in the earlier days, if these protests had been held under, let us say, a UPA regime, you would have had courts coming out, media coming out, bureaucracy saying we will not do X and Y. Now everything has given way to this. So that is a big change. How that will play out and how sustainable that is, वो हमें देखना है. मगर ये पहले 10 साल पहले अगर होता, 10 साल क्यों, 6 साल पहले अगर होता, it would have been a completely different kind of thing to now.
आपने ये जो कहा कि institutions have collapsed, तो जो collapse नहीं हुए, they are also under severe attack. आप तो JNU में थी, तो ये जो intellectual oppression है, और हमने जब ये पढ़ा था कि दिल्ली पुलिस ने आपके ऊपर भी इल्जाम लगाया, तो हमें बहुत तशवीश हुई थी, we were very concerned. तो इसके मुतालिक ये बताइए कि जो ये intellectual assault है on the places where people could think about these things, इसकी क्या dynamics है और what kind of effect is it having?
It is ongoing, it is intense. I could even say it's possibly intensified. And we don't know when it will stop, because there is a lot of attempt to destroy certain institutions in particular, which are seen as the bulwark of opposition, and that would also be a signal to intimidate everybody else. कि अगर हमने इसको भी चुप कर दिया, इसको भी बंद कर दिया, या इसको भी पूरा हमारे तरफ कर दिया, then everybody else will realize that there is no point in struggling. मैं तो ये कहूँगी कि I am really proud of my faculty and students who have maintained a very valiant fight for sustaining democracy, for sustaining the spirit and the idea of JNU in the face of all odds. And as long as that happens, I think there is still, वो दिया जला के रखना चाहिए, और ये दिया अभी तक चल रही है.
हाँ बिल्कुल, उससे मुझे वो याद आया कि लोग कहते थे कि डार्क एजेस में भी मोनेस्ट्री में वो दिए जलते रहे, and the knowledge survived all that, 500-600 years. तो आपने ये बिल्कुल ठीक कहा कि हमारी जो उम्मीदें हैं वो नौजवानों के साथ हैं, are with the young people, and I think that is the main takeaway from this wonderful conversation that we've had. I really enjoyed it. I'm sure that
I have also. I thought your questions were very, very insightful and thoughtful. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, Jayati. But in the end, is there a message that you would like to leave our viewers with, those who are desirous of moving towards a more humane economy? What would be the last words you want to leave them with?
It can be done. As I said, it basically needs enough social pressure. At the moment, it looks like it's really bad, but I have now lived long enough to realize that change comes often from directions that you don't expect, and in ways that you don't expect, and at times that you don't expect. So, and I see lots of cause for hope among young people, as I have said, in different places, who are often much braver and much more confident than we are now. So I think that, yes, we diya jala ke rakhna.
I mean, this is I think the message of our times, not to give up the struggle, to continue the struggle, and to make this struggle a kind of a permanent feature of our lives, not just to vote every 4 or 5 years and then go back and hope for change from somewhere, but to continue it. And we are seeing it in the US elections right now, that such a centrist and mainstream candidate like Biden has been pushed towards more progressive stances by all the people from the Sanders army that kept pushing and pushing and pushing. So there is hope, and I think that that's a very nice place to end. I'm really very grateful to you, and I'm very grateful to Irtiqa for having introduced you to our audiences in Pakistan. All the world knows you very well, and we've had a chance now to find out for ourselves that we have a person on our side, we have somebody thinking about these issues, and I hope that we will have a chance to interact again. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Anjum Saab, and thank you to Irtiqa. I also enjoyed this discussion a lot.
Okay, and now just a last word for our viewers. I would like you to think about this conversation. It will be recorded, it will be on YouTube. You can go back and look at it again. If you want to hear more of the views of Professor Ghosh, just go on YouTube. You'll find tons of videos of addressing all sorts of topics. Please listen to them and then formulate your questions and send them to us. And I promise that we will give you good, satisfactory, detailed answers whenever we meet again, and I hope it will be soon. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, Jayati. Thank you, viewers. And I think that we are ready to sign off now. कोई है दूसरी तरफ?